Hey everybody, Mark Andersen here, another episode of Business on the Run, and I am super excited to have William Kruer here with People First, an HR business right here in Pearland. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark.
Absolutely.
Awesome to be part of it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
popped up in my Facebook feed, and I saw that you were involved in running and business owners. So
Got a few
I
things
was like,
in common.
I gotta connect with this guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's
that's
super.
awesome.
This is usually the first question that I ask anybody that comes on the show. I would love to hear kind of like your first 3-4 minutes for the first 3-4 minutes of the show. How did you get from, let's say, graduating high school to where you are with your business today? I mean, fill in that gap for me.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting journey, and that's really my journey is what got me to where I am today with helping individuals with their career paths. Because my career path has been kind of non-traditional, and I see a lot of professionals out there like that, where they're in some kind of career that isn't an exact fit for whatever they went to school for, or whatever they started out going to school for. That's really what navigating the job market is like nowadays, especially with reskilling and AI and all the things that are happening. Is you have to be flexible and you have to understand your true skills and passion to be able to position yourself in the workplace. So I think it's an excellent question to ask about how I got here. When I was in high school, I remember not knowing what I was going to do whenever I graduated. I was good at a lot. I was involved in a lot of different clubs, involved in extracurriculars and activities and sports, and involved in music and band, and just had a lot of passions, did really well in school. But I was like, I don't know what any of that's going to translate into a career. And so I picked finance because I was good at, numbers and organizing things and the inner workings. I was always fascinated with business and always wanted to be a business owner myself. And so I knew that, in a capitalist economy, money is the foundation of any business. How you use it as a tool, how you use it to plan, how you use it to grow, how do you use it as a catalyst. And so I went into finance thinking that, that will give me a good foundation to be able to do whatever, I end up doing in business, because I knew I wanted to do something with business. When I was in college, I got involved with a family-owned business. It was called the Salyers Group. This is in Kentucky. They had 5 different businesses. They had like an event center, they had a hotel, they had a faux fur company, they had a bridal boutique, they had a holdings company with real estate. And so when I graduated, they created a position for me as operations manager. So as this 22-year-old kid, all their businesses were on the same street. I was in this golf cart going from one business to the other and working on different projects. At the bridal boutique, I was working on sales projects. At the faux fur company, we're working on inventory projects. At the events center, we're working on, operations and processes. And so it really filled my passions with like the inner workings of a business, planning things out, operations, financial planning, doing some financial planning for the hotel. And so I just really loved that job. The problem was I wasn't making any money. And so my boss at the time, a great mentor, still friends today, really early career role model for me, helping me with networking, helping me with understanding the real world of a career, what's necessary. And it's not what they present, in school. And I think a lot of people go through school and they think that they've amassed these skills and learn these things and that they should automatically be able to apply it to the workforce. And that's just not the case. And so my role model gave me a very real world understanding of how to navigate jobs and workplaces and career pathing. He knew that I was looking for a job in finance. He knew I wasn't making enough money, and he knew I had this finance degree that I wasn't totally utilizing. And so, I was very open and honest with him about the interviews that I was going on, and he was giving me tips and coaching. And I was interviewing with this bank, and he was like, Will, I just don't picture you in finance. Because here I am, I'm going business to business every day, working on different projects, working with my hands, being on my feet, talking to people. He's like, I just don't see you in finance. And I understood what he was saying, but I kind of just disregarded it because I'd never been in finance. I hadn't used my degree yet, wanted to get out and use it. So I went into finance, and he was right. I didn't like it. I didn't like sitting behind a computer all day, and I missed the relationship aspect, and I missed the operations aspect of being involved in a business, So I applied to a different job, went to meet with, for an interview, and found out that I was meeting with an external recruiter, which I didn't even know was an industry. I graduated in the heart of the recession. So the
Yeah.
idea that, businesses needed to pay somebody else to help find talent was completely foreign to me. I was
Yeah.
like, there's so many workers out there. Meet with this external recruiter and they tell me that I would be a good recruiter. And I was looking for a career change, looking for something other than finance. And I thought that does sound like something I would be good at. I'm good at solving problems, making, matches, understanding needs, and aligning people with those needs, and networking and connecting with people. So I got into recruiting, and I didn't know exactly what it was. And I think that if I had, I probably wouldn't have done it. So my naivete was to my advantage there, because I got into it was more of a sales role than it was, a problem solving role, which sales is a lot of problem solving.
Oh,
but
sure.
it just wasn't the type of problem solving that I had expected.
Yeah.
But I was really good at it. I was really good at connecting with people, networking, uncovering needs. I remember my first few placements were people that didn't exactly fit the mold from an experience standpoint of what the client was looking for, but they had the right soft skills, they had the right goals, they had the right experiences and cultural alignment that the employer recognized. And so my first few placements were like career transition placements, and I got a lot of value out of that, of helping people uncover opportunities that they didn't even know existed, especially when I had struggled with that myself, with not exactly knowing what I want to do with my career and where my skill set fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what got me into recruiting, and then went and opened up my own fractional HR firm to help businesses with hiring the right teams, building intentional cultures, and setting up people's systems to scale.
How long have you been in business now?
About 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
And if I remember our coffee conversation, you actually brought that with you from Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
And you've
the
got
business.
some other folks you work with that are still up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Started the business in Ohio and Kentucky. And I have a business partner. She's still located in Ohio. A lot of our clients are in Ohio. We have a full team of HR specialists. So everybody has their own skill set, which makes it really beneficial to our clients, because when they hire us, they hire a full team of people.
Yeah.
And so no matter what thing happens that month, because, people problems ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And they come in all different shapes and sizes. So no matter what comes up, we have a specialist that's had an entire career in that very defined function that can step in and handle it. And then when that problem's solved, they can step back out, and whoever, whatever the next problem is, somebody else can step in. So a lot of those people are located in Ohio. We have someone here. One of our consultants is here in Houston. We have someone in San Antonio. We've got someone in Wisconsin. So, we've always been a remote workplace.
Okay.
Because no one's coming to our office. We're going to theirs.
Yeah.
We're getting to know their people. We're getting to know their organization. And so we're embedding ourselves in them. And so there was no need. We were remote even before COVID.
Yeah. So was my firm. I always found that I was going to clients' offices and, not necessarily meeting them at mine. I mean,
Right.
There's no need. I mean, if you've got an office, we'll just come to you.
Mm-hmm.
It just made more sense. So I get it.
Yeah.
How many people on the team
6
total? Okay.
Yep.
Very
6
cool.
people, and then myself and my business.
And what are
partner.
all of the various specialties?
So employee relations, we have somebody that's really good at employee relations. Okay. When something comes up, when there's a conflict that comes up in a workplace, you have to navigate it with tact. You have to understand and gain people's trust, but you also have to get to the bottom of what actually happened.
Sure.
And
sort of conflict resolution.
Yeah, conflict resolution, but just navigating complexities that are happening that might open up the workplace to liability, but also are prohibiting productivity. Different people situations that are prohibiting the team from moving forward or communicating properly. That person's really good at getting to the bottom of what actually happened. Because what we found is in workplaces, things can get cliquey, right? You have your various teams of people
Politics.
who are on each other's side. And so when you interview all of them, they might all be saying the same thing, but it might not be true. Mm-hmm. And so she's really good at having enough sass to get to the bottom of what actually happened and break through all that while still building trust. So she's really skilled in that. We have a couple of recruiters who are really passionate about finding the right talent and aligning it with our clients. We have somebody who's really good at policy development and writing policies in a way that it's not just like for the sake of compliance or for the sake of policy development, but for something that's actually going to live and breathe with the people every day. And so when we roll those things out, we've already done the groundwork of gaining trust and gaining buy-in. That way, when the policy gets rolled out, people already know what's coming and why it makes sense and why it's helping them. So she's really good at doing that. And then, a few HR generalists that, can navigate labor laws and can navigate, various, whatever kind of comes up, benefits,
Sure.
things like that. It's a good team of people. And I find it interesting. I've always worked with women.
Okay.
Yeah. That first.
Well, HR is kind of,
it is,
female dominated.
It is. Yeah. Which I understand, their soft skills are important.
Yeah.
And I think,
and they're better at it than guys are.
I think women are naturally good at connecting with people and emotional intelligence. That's something that my business partners help me with is, I'm very logical. I'm very kind of like engineering mindset and operational mindset. And so she has a lot of conversations with me where she tells me what you're saying is 100% correct and factual, but it's not translating in this situation because, and then whatever emotional thing is happening.
Yeah.
And so and that's helpful in leadership too.
Oh, of course.
With connecting with people. So she's been really helpful to me, developing me as a leader. My first job out of college as an operations manager, I was on a team of all women, and my boss, who was my mentor, was the only other guy. He kind of had a different role than me. So I didn't really see him, I didn't work alongside of him.
Yeah.
He was more of a mentor to connect with, maybe on a weekly basis. But my daily job was with all women, and then, got into recruiting and HR and been working with all women. And so, my company I'm the only male. And whenever we're hiring for people, our recruiter recently found a really good fit that was a male. And she was like, do we even hire males? I'm like, yes, we consider everybody, that's a fit. It's just funny. It's just funny her perception that
right.
We might be female only. So,
and you guys do business here locally?
Yeah, we have 2 clients here.
So
in Houston.
What kind of geographic, reach do you guys have?
Yeah, well, we have a client over in Edo, and we have a client in North Houston.
Okay.
And then we have a client in Dallas and Phoenix, a lot of clients in Ohio and Kentucky.
Sure.
I think that pretty much covers it right now. We've worked in a lot of different states.
Okay. But no geographic restrictions for you guys. You guys can
No. But I love
basically do
focusing.
nationwide.
Yeah, I love focusing here in Houston, especially in Pearland.
Sure.
Pearland has so many businesses that are growing and evolving, and so much has changed in
Great
Pearland.
place. Yeah.
Over the last 10 years. And so I love getting involved right here locally and supporting business owners here.
So tell me a little about that. What do you do locally to drive traffic to your business?
Well, just a lot of networking and connecting with good professionals like yourself.
You guys involved in the Chamber of Commerce?
We are. Yep.
Okay.
Pearland Chamber and the Pearland Innovation Hub, which has been a huge help.
Yeah.
So Pearland Innovation Hub gives business owners 10 hours of consulting, complimentary.
Nice.
And you get to pick your advisor, and you get to pick kind of what you need for that 10 hours.
Okay.
So I think that's been really helpful because we've done other programs, and it's very much like, they pair you, they decide who you're paired with.
Okay.
It's based on whoever their volunteers are. So then your application or whatever you're working through is solely based on that person's experience or that team's experience, which is helpful. It's helpful to have other perspectives and insights. But I really liked how Pearland Innovation Hub, you got to pick out of a catalog who you work with and what initiative you're going to work on. I thought that was
So give me
really
an
cool.
example of some of those initiatives that you might work with.
Yeah, you can pick anything. You can pick HR, finance and accounting, marketing and sales, web and IT. Pretty much any
So basically any
department.
of those buckets that most small business owners are completely unfamiliar with. They didn't know what they're getting into and didn't realize that they've got HR as soon as they hire somebody, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Even before.
Yeah.
Even before you hire somebody, because your brand.
Yeah.
And how you're viewed and, how people interact with your culture. Your culture, it's internal, but it faces externally.
Right.
And so people don't understand the link between sales and hiring.
Okay.
The way that your clients perceive you is going to be very similar to how the marketplace perceives you from a hiring perspective. And so you want to make sure that, the types of people that you're working with are going to align with the types of people that you want to hire. And so starting that brand early, right, when you're a solopreneur, is going to save you a lot of time and money in the future when you go to make a hire.
So how do you manage, I guess, the internal culture to make sure that they're serving the clients externally?
Well, a lot of it comes down to just communication.
Yeah.
How you communicate and what you have decided your value is.
Okay.
So when you decide what your value is and when you decide what you're good at and you can showcase that will align with clients who feel the same way.
Okay.
So for instance, one of my clients up in Edo, they hired us to help them with their hiring process. And they had already built out their hiring process. So with a lot of our other clients, when that happens, we come in and we're not coming in to change things to change things. We just come in, we take a look. If there's anything that can be made better, we make it better. If not, then we don't. But with this particular client, they had built a good hiring system and they really just didn't have the time to manage it. And so for us, it was stepping in and managing things rather than, improving things. And so, trying to just connect with, what you're good at and what people perceive you as being good at, because what we're good at is making things better and building things from scratch. And so when they brought us in, that was kind of part of the talks, is they're like, we want to make things better. We want to improve this. But then when we got in there, they were like, no, don't touch anything. So, making sure that you ask better questions up front and truly understand people's intentions and what they're looking for. That way things can go smoother for that onboarding.
What does your pricing structure look like?
We charge a monthly fee based on what the needs are.
Okay.
So people needs ebb and flow, and they're very dynamic based on the business. And so for our clients that have less needs or infrequent needs, it's a much lower fee. For our clients who have us doing a lot more in a lot different areas. So if you need HR and compliance plus recruiting, those are two very different things.
Right.
And that requires a full team.
Okay.
So that's going to be a lot more expensive than somebody who just needs policy development or somebody who just needs to make a few hires.
Okay.
So, and the value is even the clients that are in the higher tiers, it's still a lot less expensive than hiring multiple people internally or trying to hire one person internally to manage everything. It really works out well with the flexibility of it, of getting that full team that can lean in and lean out based on needs.
So what are the top 3 biggest mistakes you see business owners making when they're handling all this stuff on their own?
Well, I think the first one would be knowledge, right? You have to have the knowledge of it. And increasingly, especially remote workplaces like you and I, if you're hiring people in different states, those states have different requirements.
Yeah.
So again, the client that we have in Edo, they had somebody in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is very labor law intensive. There's a few states that are, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Colorado, California. With California, I always say the nice thing about California is you can just drive there. It's right next to the US, because it's such a completely different world out there for labor laws. But anyways, they had somebody in Massachusetts and they were paying them once a month. Well, that was a compliance error right there, that the pay frequency actually had to be different than that based on those laws.
Never even thought of something like that.
Yeah. And although that, they're small and this person probably would have never made an issue out of it, it's still a gap.
Yeah.
Where if that person did want to make an issue out of it or something happens, because you never know, people get disgruntled over, could be anything.
Little things, sure.
Yeah. And so now all of a sudden you have a huge issue. So I think the first thing is having the knowledge. That's a big mistake that people have, is they think that they can read templates or they think that they can pick up things, online, when there's a lot to navigate. It's overwhelming to navigate a lot of these things. And a seasoned professional is going to know, right off the bat, based on their experience, what types of things need to be done and what types of things don't need to be done.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a big one. I would say the other one, the other problem that business owners have, or the other challenge that they face, would be not thinking hard enough about their brand. Like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
When it comes to hiring, a business owner or a leader has an idea of the type of person that they want to hire. They have an idea of like how that person communicates, what their experience is, how they act, how they present themselves. They've dreamed up this perfect employee, And they've never really asked themselves, does that person want to work for me?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as dating or relationships or marriage. You could have somebody that you're really interested in, but you're not their type.
Yeah.
It's just never going to be a fit. So you have to really think intrinsically about, am I my type's type? Does that person want to work for me? And if not, you either need to make adjustments to your workplace or you need to make adjustments to who you're trying to source.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to contribute to retention, but also in the short term, it's going to make it a lot easier to hire people, get people in to begin with. And I would say that the third thing that business owners get wrong when it comes to HR or when it comes to hiring is just having the time. Time, especially with hiring, it's extremely time consuming. And that's why there's so much gripe in the job marketplace about how candidates are treated. They don't feel like they're treated with care. They don't feel like they're treated with attention. A job search is very emotionally taxing, can be a very tough experience. And so when you're not given the attention, it only compounds that. And so I think, what happens is people don't understand how much time it takes to run a search, especially if you're searching for somebody specific.
Yeah.
To be able to source that person, how time intensive that is, and then managing the process,
Well,
managing
I've
the
hired some
candidate
people, and
inflow.
it is a time.
Yeah.
It's time consuming for
And that
sure.
time could be
Yeah.
placed other places.
Absolutely.
You know?
You guys do like placement type work as well?
We do.
Yeah.
That's not the core of our model. So I started out in the typical recruiting placement model. I was working for a global firm. My specialty was in finance and accounting. I was placing, controllers, accounting managers, financial analysts,
Shoot, I
FP&A.
need to hire you to help me with some hires in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And I used to do that stuff too. I was
Yeah.
in public accounting
Well, that's
too.
why, right?
Yeah. So I kind of know, I know what
to
skills
look
that
for.
people need to have. Yeah. I started out in that world and I was really good at it. I was the only one that was doing what I was doing in my region. I was shipped around to do different trainings within the company. And, but I was always scratching my head about the model because you're paying a fee for a person and a person is ever changing.
Yeah.
So in a business, in a healthy business, you should always have open roles for one reason or another. So if I pay a fee for Mark and I hire Mark and he's doing a great job and I give him other duties and he progresses out of the role into something else in the company, the role that he was in is now open, right? That's healthy. You're a growing business, your talent is developing, that's healthy. Or your business is growing and you're creating new roles. That's healthy too. Or Mark gets an internship of his dreams in London and moves to London. It's like you want to be happy for Mark, right? Because you developed him to get to that place.
Sure.
So that's healthy too. The role's open again. So I paid a fee for Mark, but now the role is open.
Yeah.
So as a business owner, I didn't understand that model. I didn't understand how that solves a business problem. It's a Band-Aid, right? You found a great qualified person, but operationally, your business still has to continue paying those fees. We do those placement fees because they make sense for very niche roles, very time-sensitive roles, things like that. But our business model is really helping growing businesses that have multiple open roles develop the right processes, develop the right support so that sourcing talent takes less time and therefore costs less money. Onboarding talent takes less time and costs less money. And those processes are increased so that when you keep having open roles or you have open roles in the future or whatever, you have the right processes in place to reduce those costs and get people in quickly.
Okay.
Has really been the foundation of our model.
Tell me about those sad times when you have to part ways with an employee. What are some of the mistakes you see when it comes to firing people?
Yeah, well, I've had to fire a few people recently.
Okay.
And it was, it's always a difficult conversation.
So your clients hire you as the axe man? Okay.
They have to be present. It has to come from them, but they have us in the room to make sure that things don't go crazy.
Right.
That they don't say something that's going to get them in trouble or just support. Sometimes it's just helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have to say or do anything.
Yeah.
They just appreciate that we're there and that we're cognizant of everything that's going on. And they feel safer to keep them out of trouble. But I think the main mistake that employers make is saying too much and doing too much. So we had a few weeks ago, we had a client that had to let somebody go and they wrote out a letter. They wrote out like a termination letter. And we were like, no, you don't have to do that. That's only going to open up liability if they pursue a claim or pursue a lawsuit against you. All you have to do is, bring them into a room, let them know the reason, which, some people aren't even comfortable giving the reason, which that's fine too. That keeps things safe. Our standpoint is to lead with tact. And so we provide a reason, within compliance that isn't going to get them in trouble to help, the person understand the emotional thing that's happening to them.
Yeah.
But I think that employers say too much, they do too much. And so keeping it as simple as possible and providing that employee with resources and or ex-employee rather, and providing them with, respect that, even if they had done something to warrant what was happening, they're still a person and the situation needs to be treated with tact and navigated carefully.
What kind of differences are there for the termination issues that we were just talking about? How do they vary from state to state?
Honestly, they don't. Okay. So different states have different laws, right? And there's at-will employment states and, there's not. But even in the at-will employment states, you still have protected classes and you still have, even in an at-will employment state, people can still pursue you for a lawsuit. It's a lot easier, it's a lot easier to navigate and a lot easier to do in those states, but it still needs to be addressed, carefully. But I would say that, yeah, like the states that I mentioned before, they're a little bit more difficult, like California.
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult to let somebody go.
They're more
But
employee focused rather than business focused.
I think that that's the intention,
Mhm.
in that would get us into a political conversation.
Right.
Where, I think that that's the intention. Sometimes it doesn't always play out that way,
Yeah.
right? I think that in a place like California, you're still able to make these terminations. You just have to follow a very specific cadence, and you need to make sure that you're checking your boxes for compliance. And so that's something that, you need to get help with.
Okay.
And so people think that they can get a template, but every situation is unique,
Okay.
right? And so it's always best to have a seasoned professional that can kind of facilitate that and navigate that, because there's a lot of nuances to it.
Here's what I want to know more than anything. We have a very common business in one respect anyway. We both have teams that work remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I'd like. What are some of your biggest tips for other small business owners that are running remote businesses, virtual businesses, for getting and maintaining the culture that they want?
Yeah.
Right? It's so hard to really manage culture. I mean, it's hard to manage culture no matter what, but it seems like it's 10 times harder when you're remote.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys recommend for managing culture, especially in a remote setting?
Culture is tough to manage in person or remotely especially, and that's been a huge hot topic ever since COVID.
Yeah.
Is how do we, manage a good culture and keep people engaged, and also just managing culture in general. A lot of employers, where a lot of mistakes are made, is people think that a culture is just organic and just kind of goes by itself, and you just kind of plug into it. And although a lot of the principles and identifiers about it are organic, you can still utilize it as a tool. And that's what we help our clients with. We don't develop their culture for them. We don't tell them what their culture is. First, we uncover what their culture is from their perspectives. It's always different at different levels. And then we understand how to use that as a tool for their people operations, their hiring, and things like that. I think that a big mistake that remote workplaces get into is they try to make a remote culture the same as an in-person culture.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to recognize that they're different, and you can't do the same. Big group meetings, big team building meetings are difficult in a remote fashion. And so what we've done is try to break it down. Gamifying things really helps. Having like team building gamified sessions. I know a lady that's really good at creating like little games that help people understand how the other person communicates,
Like
how the other person
icebreaker
thinks.
type things?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a little bit more customized to whatever the business is.
Okay.
And so you could have a big group setting, and then people go off into break off rooms and have various games to play, and that helps build culture. But again, it's really thinking through like what your culture is, because everyone's different, everything's unique, and honing in on it. Okay. So for us, something that we do was like we have a Christmas party, a virtual Christmas party every year. We actually do an in-person one for the people that we can get together, and then we do a virtual one for the people that are located other places. In the virtual one, we do a gingerbread house building contest. And it's just a good way, like people have something to
virtually?
do. Well, I send them a kit.
Oh, okay.
So I pick out a kit and I mail it to them, and I mail like a little Christmas gift and a card, and then we do a contest during our party where we're all just building and we're socializing and hanging out. And so it's good to have like something to do. Mm-hmm. And it's even better if you can send them something tangible. We had a client who, this was in Kentucky, bourbon tasting was like a big thing to them. And so they hired like a virtual bartender to create a craft cocktail in one of their meetings. And so they got mailed all the ingredients, and then the bartender helped them. Yeah. So like having, finding activities to do, going through the exercises to think of what is our culture, what do people appreciate, what do people like, and then finding a way to do it, and keeping in mind that it's virtual and it's not in person. So it's going to be a lot different. You don't want to try to replicate an in-person culture for something virtual.
They're different animals altogether, that's for sure. So you talked a little about values. I'm assuming that you can use your core values as a way to help manage your culture as well, right? Mm-hmm. How do you help clients formulate core values for their businesses? And then I guess how does that tie in with culture?
What we've found is that a lot of people have a poster on the wall with their values. Some businesses want all the employees to memorize that and recite that and talk about it. But what we found when we go in and we help people with their values is that everyone has a different description for what that value is. So you might have value says client centric, and everyone defines it differently.
Sure.
Some people might talk about, being accessible to clients at all times. Other people might think that that's, an invasion of boundaries, and you're not going to produce high quality of work if you're always on. And so there's little micro conflicts that happen with people defining things differently. So the way that we help our clients with it is uncovering the behaviors behind it and how that fits with the service model or, the product of the business.
Yeah.
What is the impact of that behavior to your clients or to your service, and how people work together? And then we unwind it from there is how that applies on a daily basis, and help them build up their values that way. So instead of people memorizing words on a wall, people are more understanding of how it actually applies.
Hey, little change in topic.
Let's do it.
You're a golfer, are you not?
I am.
I don't know if we
Not
talked
very
about
good.
that. When we had coffee, I don't think we talked about that.
Yeah.
I used to be golf pro back, but you were talking about different
Yeah,
career paths
you did
and
say
stuff,
that,
right?
yeah.
Did I? Okay. I guess I don't know. I missed it. I just remember seeing pictures of you and your son out on the golf course, and I'm like, that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, I just figured that
so-
out. So I'm a single parent.
Yeah.
And I've taken my son on over 40 flights by myself. People always commend me. They're like, I can't even take my kid to a restaurant. And, here I've traveled all over the country and various places with him. So I've done
all golf trips, right?
No, I'm not that talented yet. I've been very active with him, but I do always surprise myself with the things that I don't know. And so a few weeks ago, somebody at church had said, hey, do you want to go golfing today? I said, well, I have my son. And he's like, well, I'm bringing my son, the same age. And I was like, you can do that? And I never really thought about it. And it's like, because I've had him, I have a club for him, and we go to the beach, and he hits the ball around the beach, and I teach him how to hit there. And so I was like, yeah, I guess you could, he could tee off, and then we golf, and he might find that to be fun. So I took him, and he had a blast, and I had a blast, and he's 3 years old now. And so I just figured out, like, I had no idea that you could even do that.
Yeah.
And so it's possible. And so now that's going to be our thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I know here a couple of weekends back, I went and visited my brother, and we went to a place. My brother was talking about going to play miniature golf. We usually will go up there and do top golf, right? And he's not much of a golfer. My dad and I were the golfers in the family, and he wanted to go play miniature golf, and I'm kind of like, really, we're gonna play mini golf? I don't know if you've heard about it or not. There's this new place called Pop Stroke. Have you heard about it?
I think so. Is that in Midtown?
There's one out near the Top Golf in Katy.
Okay.
And it is so cool because basically it almost looks like a golf course in Arizona, or a dunes style golf course, right? No bumper, sides or windmills or clowns where you're hitting it through their mouths. And it's not like that at all. It looks like a real golf course. I bet your son would love doing something like that. It would be, I bet he'd have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, check it out. So I know you mentioned church a minute ago. Tell me a little about your faith.
Well, it's ever evolving.
Yeah.
Just like anything. It's been a constant journey. I was raised Presbyterian, raised in the church. And so I never really gave much thought to it. Okay. I just thought, this is what it is. This is, how it is. This is how you plug in. And even as a kid, though, even though I never really thought about it or had to, think for myself about it, I did always appreciate that I saw that it really gave you the tools for how to be happy, for how to be joyful, for how to have peace. And so I always plugged in that way. I found that to be really beneficial. But of course, you go through different seasons in your life. And there was a few seasons where I was really questioning, like, I spent my whole life like this was all normal. And now I'm like, questioning, like, is it normal? Is it real? Is it this? Is it that? I went through those seasons. And I think something, that started happening about 5 years ago was I found this insight where it's very relationship based. It's not, your faith and God and all that is not a God of rules. Mm-hmm. He's a God of relationships. And that's something that has really changed my path and my understanding here recently over the past 5 years, is that faithfulness or being unfaithful is a relationship thing. It's not a rule thing.
Yeah.
You do certain things in your relationships, not because they're rules, but because that's how you stay in a healthy relationship. And it's the same with God. And that never occurred to me. I started to understand that. I mean, even if you were thinking about golf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're golfing with God. Typically when you're golfing, you go to each person's ball. You don't just split off and one person goes to their ball and the other person goes to the other ball. You each go to whoever's in your cart's ball. They hit their ball. Then you go to the next person's ball. If you were golfing with God and you tried to go off and do your own thing and get your own ball, or you would hit it, into the lake and he's telling you don't even bother looking for it. It's gone. It's in the lake. And then you go and try to look for it. Those aren't rules that he's giving you. That's just common etiquette of being in a relationship. And when you're following those etiquettes, you have a more fruitful relationship. And so that's something that's really just resonated with me recently.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Personally, I just don't think it would be very fun to play golf with God. He's going to hit a hole-in-one every time, and I would lose every single time. And being that he's perfect, right? So I mean, geez. So anyway, no, I'm just.
He's
teasing,
also omnipotent, so
yes,
he would know where your ball is every time.
Every
that would
time,
be, and that's
every
my
time.
biggest 90% of the reason why I'm bad at it. I can never find my ball, so I think it would be helpful to have him.
If you were sitting in my seat right now, what questions have I failed to ask that I should have asked?
Well, I think that you did a great job of facilitating a
I appreciate
conversation. Yeah. And so that's what I always enjoy is just having a natural conversation.
Yeah.
I think people don't want scripted questions or, some kind of news presentation, right?
Yeah,
they want to hear from real people from real experiences. So I appreciate that you asked me about, some of the personal aspects of my life, because that's important for how those connect to what you do as a profession.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I really have a passion with our business, is helping individuals find their path. Is you have a specific perspective and identity and skill set, and people often don't know how to uncover that. They don't know the mechanisms behind it. And so then they end up in roles that don't fit. And that's bad for both people. It's bad for the workforce. Just because you're aligned in your career, in your work, and you're personally connected to it, doesn't mean that it's always fun. I think that's a big misconception, right? The word passion is rooted from a Latin word that means to struggle. I don't remember if you and I had talked about this over coffee.
I think you mentioned it when we were talking.
Yeah. It's rooted in the word struggle and sacrifice. And so what it means is that you find something of so much value that you're willing to sacrifice for it and you're willing to struggle for it. And so I think today, the young people talk a lot about passion, finding passion, and they're misusing the term for finding something that's fun and enjoyable.
Yeah.
You're not going to have fun and enjoyable days every day in your career, but you can find something that aligns with your skill set.
Yeah.
And that's digging deep into who you are personally. So I thought that was really cool that you were asking about some of the personal things and how that connects, because that's relevant to everyone.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, hey, being a small business owner is a grind, and sometimes it can be very lonely.
Extremely lonely.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
I would say that's probably what business owners struggle the most with, is not having another person or a community to give affirmation, to challenge their thinking, to just know, like, am I doing the right thing?
I think it's one of the reasons that I enjoy doing this show, is really to kind of trade some of those war stories that we experience as small business owners, because we do spend so much time alone, even separate from our team, right? They don't fully understand the struggles that we're dealing with as the leader of their organization. And it is nice to know that not only know that there are other people that are dealing with the same issues, but I also believe strongly in, when you share your struggles with people, and I'm not talking about complaining, that's different, right? But if you share your struggles with people, you'd be surprised how often that those people can provide you with a solution to those struggles.
Yeah.
Or at least, some relief, right?
Or relate. Yeah.
Or relate.
Have
sometimes that's all you need or want, right? Is someone to know that you share the same struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I was just talking about that with another business owner that was saying one of their top struggles is business development, and getting clients. And they were like, I wish I could get to a place where I had enough money to pay a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I told them, I was like, that's not always the solution.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it's hard to find good salespeople. And so try in a helpful way, was trying to instruct them that, they have to go through different mechanisms and avenues for developing their own business,
Yeah.
rather than thinking there's some kind of, light at the end of the tunnel to pay somebody else to do it. Because the business owners that I've seen go down that path often spend a lot of money on somebody that doesn't bring in any business.
Yeah.
So helping that person, to your point, sharing a perspective with that person that might prevent them from going down the wrong path.
And I tell you, here's something that I think about from time to time too, is that, small business owners, most of the time anyway, when they get into whatever business it is, they don't realize all the hats they have to wear, right? I say this all the time. They don't realize, they may realize they're the CEO, right? But they don't realize they're the CMO, the head of sales, the IT department, the HR department, and also, hey, the CFO, right? That's kind of, our wheelhouse, right? They kind of forget all of those things. But I feel like once you get to a point with your business, if you can start to shed some of the operational things, it's incumbent on you to pick up one of those other areas and learn as much as you possibly can about it, whether it's marketing and sales or HR or whatever, so that you kind of understand the inner workings of that when you do have the opportunity to finally pass it off to someone else and pay someone to do it.
Yeah, you need to know what's going on. You might be able to delegate it, but you need to have enough knowledge of what's going on to make sure that
it's a big difference between abdication and delegation.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
We got to wrap it up. And I tell you, I've really enjoyed our chat. This has been a blast. One last thing. For those that are out there that want to do business with you, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, definitely follow me on LinkedIn. It's,
Okay.
LinkedIn.com/Will-Kruer.
Okay.
And shoot me an email, wkruer@choosepeoplefirst.com. And I try to make my content helpful and instructional. So hope that people can get some value out of it.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Business on the Run with Will Kruer. Thanks a lot. My name is Mark Andersen, and you can get our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. So thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.